Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Naruto was sent to the past to fix his biggest mistake. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The sky over what was once Konohagakure bled. It was a weeping wound of sickly orange and arterial red, choked with the black smoke of funeral pyres that had long since run out of bodies to burn. The air, thick with the metallic tang of blood and the sterile scent of ozone, tasted of ash and finality. Uzumaki Naruto, the seventh Hokage, stood on the cracked, upturned face of his own stone likeness. The granite cheek was split by a chasm deep enough to swallow a house, a grotesque scar mirroring the one that bisected his own weary face. His right arm, a construct of Hashirama's cells, was a mangled ruin of splintered white material and exposed chakra circuitry, twitching uselessly at his side. His left arm was broken in 3 places, cradled against the chest where ribs grated against each other with every ragged breath. His iconic orange and black jacket was gone, torn to shreds hours or perhaps days ago, leaving only the tattered remains of his black undershirt and the flak jacket that had been shattered like porcelain. He was a monument of pain, a living effigy of a world's dying gasp. His 6-path sage mode, once a radiant sun of golden power, was a flickering candle flame. The truth-seeking orbs were long gone, expended in desperate gambits that had only delayed the inevitable. His connection to the other bijou was silent. A chorus of voices snuffed out one by one, their chakra violently ripped from the world. Across the cratered expanse that had been the heart of his village, the architect of this apocalypse hovered. Otsutsuki Koku was a being of stark, terrifying simplicity. His skin was the color of bleached bone, his hair a cascade of sterile white. 2 asymmetrical horns jutted from his head, one a perfect, spiraling ivory point, the other a jagged stump, shattered in a battle that felt like a lifetime ago. He wore the traditional white robes of his clan, now stained and torn, revealing a chest covered in a complex tapestry of black karma markings. His eyes, a pair of placid, emotionless Byakugan, surveyed the devastation not with triumph, but with the detached indifference of a farmer clearing a fallow field. "It is over, vessel of the QB," Koku's voice echoed, not through sound waves, but directly into Naruto's mind. It was a cold, flat tone, devoid of malice or pleasure. "Your world has been harvested." The cycle continues. Surrender the last dregs of the beast chakra, and I will grant you a swift end. Naruto coughed, a wet, rattling sound. Blood flecked his lips. He tried to summon the strength to retort, to scream one last defiant battle cry, but all that came out was a wheezing gasp. His mind, a fortress that had withstood wars and monsters, was crumbling. It kept replaying the ghosts of his failures, a torturous cinema of loss. He saw Sasuke, his brother in all but blood, face pale and serene even as Koku's chakra rod pierced his heart. Sasuke's final act wasn't an attack, but a desperate teleportation. His Rinnegan had flared, swapping Naruto's position with his own, taking the fatal blow meant for the Hokage. The mighty Susanoo, the ultimate defense, had flickered and dissolved into purple dust around him. Sasuke's last words, whispered across their shared link, were not of regret, but a simple, heart-shattering, "Take care of them, Naruto." He saw Sakura, her pink hair matted with dust and blood, her hands glowing with the green light of the strength of 100 seal. She wasn't in combat. She was shielding a group of terrified academy students as the Hokage tower crumbled. She had held the massive slab of falling granite for a full 10 seconds, her body screaming under the strain, giving the children time to scramble to safety before she was erased. He had felt her chakra signature vanish, a light of unwavering warmth suddenly snuffed out. He saw Shikamaru, his brilliant mind finally facing a problem with no solution, swallowed by a wave of destructive energy, as he bought Naruto precious seconds to evacuate the civilian shelters. He saw Hinata, her gentle fist a whirlwind of desperate courage, falling as she defended their children, and Boruto. Himawari. The thought was a physical blow, more devastating than any punch Koku had landed. He squeezed his eyes shut, but their faces were seared onto the inside of his eyelids. Their small hands, their bright smiles, their voices calling him Dad. He had failed them. He, the child of prophecy, the savior of the world, had failed to save his own children. There is nothing left to fight for, Koku's voice intruded again, a scalpel dissecting his grief. Your friends are gone. Your family is gone. Your village is ash. Your legacy is failure. A flicker of rage, hot and familiar, cut through the pain. It was a pale imitation of the inferno that had once defined him, but it was enough. Naruto forced his legs to lock, pushing himself upright. A tiny spark of golden chakra sputtered to life around him, the last dregs of his power. As long as I'm still breathing, Naruto rasped, his voice a gravelly ruin, there's always something to fight for. Koku sighed, a sound of faint annoyance. So be it. He raised a hand, and the very air began to distort around it. A sphere of absolute black, a miniature star eater that consumed light and hope, began to form. Naruto knew that attack. He had seen it wipe out the entirety of Sunagakure in a single, silent instant. This was it. The end. As his vision began to tunnel, a voice, ancient and deep as the earth, rumbled in the depths of his soul. Naruto. He felt a familiar pull, a retreat from the physical world into the sanctuary of his own mind. The crumbling visage of his stone face dissolved, the blood-red sky vanished, and he found himself standing in ankle-deep water in a place he hadn't visited in years. His mindscape. It was a ruin. The vast, brightly lit boiler room of his youth and the clean, open space of his later years were gone. Now, it was a dark, cavernous chamber. The pipes that lined the ceiling were rusted through, dripping a slow, viscous black liquid into the murky water below. The air was heavy, stagnant, and cold. The great gate that had once imprisoned his other half was long gone, but the space felt more confining than ever, as if the walls were slowly closing in. Before him, lying in the shallow, dark water, was the source of the voice. Kurama, the titanic, nine-tailed fox, was a shadow of his former glory. His once vibrant, fiery orange fur was faded and dull. His form was translucent, flickering like a faulty projection. Great, gaping wounds in his chakra formed bled wisps of red energy that dissolved before they even hit the water. He was dying, and Naruto's heart, already shattered into a million pieces, broke all over again. Kurama. Naruto whispered, his own spiritual form slumping. You're still. Barely, the fox rumbled, his massive head lifting with a monumental effort. One of his slitted red eyes, dim and weary, focused on Naruto. Listen to me, brat. There is no time. The Otsutsuki is preparing his final attack. Our physical bodies have moments, if that. I know, Naruto said, a tear tracing a path down his spiritual cheek. I'm sorry, Kurama. I got you into this. After everything, after we finally became partners, I led you to your death. A low chuckle, like stones grinding together, emanated from the fox's throat. Don't be an idiot. I wouldn't have had it any other way. We lived a hell of a life, didn't we? But this isn't about goodbyes. Not yet. Naruto looked at him, confused. What else is there? A gamble, Kurama stated, his voice gaining a sliver of its old strength. A kinjutsu buried so deep in the Uzumaki clan's lore that it was considered a myth. Your mother's bloodline. It was more than just sealing chains and longevity. They were masters of space and time in ways that made the fourth Hokage's techniques look like children's toys. This one, it was their ultimate, forbidden art. A jutsu of last resort, meant to be used only at the absolute nexus of life and death. Kurama's form flickered more violently. It's called the Uzumaki Oji, Rinna Tensei no Jaikuten, the Uzumaki secret art, Samsara Rewind. Naruto stared. Samsara Rewind? What does it do? It does exactly what it sounds like, Kurama explained, his tone deadly serious. It cannot turn back the world. It cannot send our bodies back. But it can take one soul, at the very precipice of its destruction, and send its complete consciousness, every memory, every experience, every ounce of knowledge and battle sense, back along its own timeline. It will overwrite the younger soul, effectively transplanting you into your past self. Naruto's breath hitched. Go back? A chance to. There's a cost, Kurama interrupted his spiraling thoughts. A monumental one. The jutsu requires an impossible amount of life force and chakra, channeled in a single, perfect instant. A normal human couldn't even dream of it. but a Jinchuriki, at the moment of their death, sharing a lifetime of bonded energy with their bijou. The implication crashed down on Naruto with the force of a tailed beast bomb. It requires all of it, Kurama confirmed, his gaze unwavering. Your life force and mine. Every last drop. I will have to pour the entirety of my being, my very existence, into your soul to fuel the journey. For you, it will be a new beginning. For me, in this timeline, it will be the true and final end. No revival. No collecting my chakra in the wild. I will be utterly and completely consumed. No, Naruto said, the word catching in his throat. Absolutely not. I won't do it. I won't kill you. You're my friend, Kurama. My first friend. And you are my friend, you damned fool! Kurama roared, a flash of his old fire returning. The mindscape shook, and the black water sloshed against the walls. Do you think I want this? To fade away? But look around us, Naruto. Look at the world you just left. It is over. Koku has won. Sasuke is dead. Sakura is dead. Your children are dead. Everyone is dead. What is the point of my survival if it means stewarding a ghost in a graveyard for a few more seconds? The fox's voice softened again, filled with a deep, aching sadness. This is not killing me. This is me choosing how I die. I can either fade into nothingness alongside you in a dead world, or I can burn my life as a beacon to give you one last chance to save them all. To save him? Him? Naruto whispered, though he knew. Sasuke, Kurama said gently. This all started with him, didn't it? Your obsession. Your rivalry. Your failure to bring him back from the darkness before it consumed him. That failure led to Orochimaru, to the Akatsuki's hunt being accelerated, to the war, to Madara, to Kagaya, and eventually, to a world so weakened that new Otsutsuki could simply pluck it from the branch. Your biggest mistake wasn't one moment, Naruto. It was a cascade of them, all originating from your inability to truly understand and save your brother. Kurama's words were a truth so sharp they bypassed all of Naruto's defenses and pierced him to the core. He had always known it deep down. He had saved Sasuke in the end, but the cost had been catastrophic. The world had paid the price for their broken bond. You were a loud-mouthed, hyperactive brat, Kurama continued, a hint of fondness in his voice. You tried to punch your way into his heart when you should have just walked in. You saw a rival to surpass, not a traumatized little boy drowning in a sea of vengeance. This time, you can be the friend he needed from the start. You can be the pillar that stops him from ever taking that first step into the dark. Naruto sank to his knees in the water, his spiritual form trembling. The weight of it was immense. A chance to save them. A chance to have his family back. A chance to see Sakura's smile, to argue with Sasuke over something stupid, to feel Hinata's gentle hand in his. A chance to hold Boruto and Himawari. But the price was Kurama. His oldest, most cantankerous, most loyal companion. He looked at the fading fox, at the being who had been with him since the day he was born, who had shared his loneliness, his pain, his triumphs, and his joy. Will it hurt? Naruto asked, his voice small. Kurama was silent for a moment. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. He extended a colossal, translucent fist, stopping just before Naruto. It was the gesture that had sealed their partnership so many years ago. A fist bump. It's been an honor, Naruto. Tears streamed freely down Naruto's face now, mixing with the dark water at his feet. He raised his own shaking fist and pressed it against Kurama's. A surge of warmth, of ancient, powerful, and deeply familiar chakra, pulsed against his knuckles. Thank you, Naruto choked out. For everything. I'll see you on the other side. Someday. A great, fanged smile, faint and ghostly, spread across Kurama's face. It was the most genuine smile Naruto had ever seen from him. No, you won't, but you'll see a younger, angrier, much more handsome version of me. Try not to piss him off too much right away. He's a real bastard. The smile faded, replaced by a look of grim determination. It's time. The jutsu has to be activated at the exact moment of physical death to work. The bastard outside is about to give us our trigger. Put your hand on me. All of it. Don't hold back. Naruto nodded, his resolve hardening. This was Kurama's final gift. He would not let it be in vain. He stood and placed his palm flat against the fox's ethereal chest. Now, Kurama commanded. Focus on a point in time. A nexus. A moment from which you can change everything. Naruto's mind raced. When? The Valley of the End? The Chunin exams? No. It had to be earlier. Before the first real crack appeared in their bond. Before Wave Country. Before the bell test. The beginning. The day they were assigned to Team 7. Good, Kurama's voice was growing fainter, stretching thin. Hold that image. Hold it tight, and don't mess it up this time, brat. The world of the mindscape began to dissolve. Kurama's form erupted in a silent, brilliant explosion of red and gold light. It wasn't an explosion of force, but of pure energy, of life itself, that surged not outwards, but inwards, pouring into Naruto like a river of stars. It was an agony and an ecstasy, the feeling of 1,000 lifetimes being compressed into his soul. He felt Kurama's own memories, centuries of lonely wandering, his creation by the Sage of Six Paths, his hatred for humanity, his eventual bond with Naruto, all flowing into him, a final, complete sharing. Simultaneously, in the physical world, the sphere of black nothingness in Otsutsuki Koku's hand pulsed once, and shot forward. It crossed the distance of the crater in less than a second. The last thing the seventh Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto, ever saw was the silent, all-consuming darkness of the expansive truth-seeking orb just as it touched his chest. And then, light. A blinding, infinite, searing white light that tore his consciousness from his body, from time, from reality itself. He was a screaming mote of golden energy hurtling backward through an impossible tunnel. He saw flashes of his life in reverse. The war, his wedding, the birth of his children, his fight with Sasuke, his training with Jiraiya, the bell test, all rushing past him like scattered photographs in a hurricane. The speed was nauseating, the pressure immense. He felt his very being, the essence of the 40-year-old Hokage, being squeezed through a pinhole in the fabric of existence. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The impact was brutal. It wasn't physical, but psychic. His entire, war-torn, 40-year-old consciousness slammed into a new container with the force of a planetary collision. Thump-thump. 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 A heartbeat. Slow. Steady. Yum. His own. Naruto's eyes snapped open. The first thing he registered was the smell. It was a potent, unforgettable aroma of stale broth, preservatives, and cheap paper from 100 empty cups of instant ramen. It was the smell of his childhood. He was lying on his back, staring at a familiar, water-stained ceiling. A cheap, lumpy mattress was beneath him, covered by a thin, scratchy orange blanket. Sunlight, clean and golden and utterly devoid of ash, streamed through a grimy window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Outside, he could hear the distant, cheerful sounds of a vibrant village, birds chirping, the chatter of vendors, the laughter of children. Sounds he thought he would never hear again. He sat up, a gasp escaping his lips. His body felt small, uncoordinated. His limbs were shorter, his frame lighter. He looked down at his hands. They were small, uncalloused, with neatly trimmed fingernails, not the scarred, gnarled hands of a warrior. With a surge of adrenaline, he threw the blanket aside and scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping over his own feet. He stumbled into the tiny, cramped bathroom and flicked on the light. He stared into the small, cracked mirror above the sink, and the breath left his lungs in a silent whoosh. Looking back at him was not the scarred, weary face of the seventh Hokage. It was the face of a boy. A 12-year-old boy with a cherubic, round face still holding its baby fat, a ridiculous grin frozen in a half-smirk on his lips from whatever dream he'd been having, and a thatch of wild, sun-yellow hair. 3 faint whisker marks, delicate as calligraphy strokes, adorned each cheek. His eyes, wide and blue as a summer sky, were filled not with the ghosts of 1,000 battles, but with a burgeoning, world-shattering shock. It worked, he whispered. His voice was high-pitched, cracking with puberty. It was so alien, so wrong, coming from the mind of the man he was. He reached up a trembling hand and touched his cheek. It was smooth. No scar. He ran a hand through his hair. It was short, spiky, and completely his own. He looked down at his torso. His chest was narrow, his stomach soft. No battle wounds, no faded seals, just the unblemished skin of a boy on the cusp of his adventure. Kurama, he had actually done it. He stumbled back, leaning against the doorframe, his legs threatening to give out. The sheer, overwhelming reality of it washed over him. He was back. He was 12. Sakura was alive. Sasuke was alive. Jiraiya, Neji, his father, his mother, no, not them, he couldn't change that, but so many others. They were all alive. A wave of hysterical joy warred with a tsunami of profound grief for the future he had lost, for the partner who had sacrificed everything to give him this chance. He wanted to laugh and scream and sob all at once. He took a deep, shuddering breath, forcing the Hokage in his mind to reassert control. Get a grip, Naruto. Panicking is a luxury you don't have. He needed to confirm the exact date. He lurched back into his bedroom and looked at the cheap, goofy-looking frog calendar hanging on the wall. The date was circled in red marker, with a poorly drawn picture of a shuriken next to it. The text, in his own childish scrawl, read, Genin teams tomorrow. Beats Sasuke. It was the day before team assignments. The very beginning. Kurama had sent him to the perfect moment. A new sensation, cold and sharp, pricked at his senses. It was a familiar feeling, one he hadn't truly felt in decades. He slowly placed his right hand over the seal on his stomach, right over his navel. It wasn't the gentle, ambient warmth of his bonded partner. It wasn't the quiet thrum of a shared existence. It was a cage, and inside that cage, he could feel a consciousness, a vast, primal, and utterly furious wellspring of hatred and rage. It was a chaotic inferno of power, sealed away and seething with a millennium of bitterness. Closing his eyes, Naruto focused inward, letting his consciousness sink. The messy apartment faded, replaced by the all-too-familiar sight of a dripping sewer. The water was clear, not black, but it was cold and unwelcoming. And there it was, looming over him like a crimson mountain of judgment, the gate. The massive, towering gate with the paper seal fixed firmly in its center, glowing with a faint, suppressive light. And behind those bars, two colossal, slitted red eyes, burning with pure, undiluted malice, snapped open. Who dares? A voice growled, a guttural, demonic sound that vibrated through the very water at his feet. Another one of these pathetic little jailers come to gloat? Get out of my sight, human insect, before I devour your worthless soul. Naruto stood before the incarnation of raw hatred that he had once called his friend, and the full, crushing weight of his mission settled upon his 12-year-old shoulders. He was alone again. Truly alone. He had a world to save, a brother to reclaim, and a resentful, caged god to befriend all over again. He pulled his consciousness back to the tiny, sunlit apartment. The sounds of the living Konoha filled the silence. He looked back at his young, innocent face in the mirror, the blue eyes now holding the ancient grief and iron resolve of a man who had seen the end of the world. A single tear, a final goodbye to Kurama and the life he'd left behind, traced a path down his cheek. He wiped it away with a firm, steady hand. There was no time for mourning. The mission had begun. The dawn of his second chance was jarringly, painfully beautiful. Naruto lay still for a long time after his trip to the mental sewer, simply listening. The sounds of a Konoha at peace were a symphony he thought he'd never hear again. The distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the cheerful haggling in the marketplace, the chirping of sparrows nesting outside his window. It was all so achingly normal. He committed every note to memory, a balm on the raw wounds of a future that now existed only in his mind. But the Hokage within the boy knew that sentiment was a luxury. He had a role to play. With a groan that was only half-acting, he rolled out of bed. His first challenge of the day, pretending to be the idiot he once was. He rummaged through his closet, pulling on the blindingly orange jumpsuit that had been his uniform for years. It felt strange, the synthetic fabric both unfamiliar and deeply nostalgic. It was a clown's costume, a desperate plea for attention. He had worn it with pride. Now, it felt like a lead weight. He looked in the mirror again, the bright-eyed boy staring back. He practiced a grin, wide and manic. It felt like a mask, a grotesque parody of happiness. This is for them, he told himself, the faces of his lost loved ones flashing through his mind. This is the price. He burst out of his apartment with a loud "all right. Time to become a ninja, believe it!" The shout was obnoxious, echoing in the quiet morning hallway. A few neighbors peeked out, their faces etched with the familiar annoyance he had cultivated his entire life. He gave them a cheeky wave and a thumbs up, ignoring the pang of guilt. He had to be the Naruto they expected. A sudden shift in personality now would draw too much attention, the wrong kind of attention. Walking through the village was a gauntlet of ghosts. He saw shopkeepers he'd watched die defending their homes. He saw shinobi who had been his comrades in the war, now fresh-faced and carefree. He saw Tucci and Ayam at Ichiraku, prepping for the lunch rush, and a wave of warmth and sorrow so profound it nearly buckled his knees washed over him. He forced himself to keep walking. He arrived at the academy, taking the stairs two at a time, making as much noise as possible. He slid the classroom door open with a bang. "Guess who's here to become the greatest Hokage ever?" he announced to the room at large. A collective groan went through the assembled students. "Do you ever shut up, Naruto?" Ino Yamanaka sighed, flipping her long blonde ponytail over her shoulder. "Troublesome," a lazy voice mumbled from the back. Naruto's eyes found him. Shikamaru Nara, head down on his desk, already looking bored with a day that hadn't even started. Beside him, Choji Akimichi was carefully opening a bag of potato chips, trying to be quiet but failing. Naruto's heart clenched. He saw not two lazy kids, but the brilliant Jonin commander who had orchestrated the allied shinobi forces and the kind, powerful warrior in butterfly mode who had held the line against the ghetto statue. They were just boys. They had no idea of the burdens they would one day carry. His gaze swept the room, landing on a quiet, pale-faced boy with a high-collared jacket. Shino Abirame, his Kakachu bugs already quietly buzzing beneath his clothes. Naruto remembered the stoic, reliable man he would become, a man who had helped track down countless enemies. Then his eyes fell upon a slumping figure with a dog peeking out of his jacket. Kiba Inuzuka, loud and brash, his perfect foil. Naruto almost smiled, a real smile, remembering their fierce but friendly rivalry. And then he saw her. In the back row, tucked away near the window, sat Hinata Hyuga. She was fidgeting, her fingers twisting together in her lap. As he looked over, her pale lavender eyes met his for a fraction of a second before she flinched, a deep blush coloring her cheeks as she quickly looked down at her desk. The air left Naruto's lungs. It was her. His Hinata. The shy, gentle girl who had always believed in him. The brave woman who had stood before pain for his sake. The loving wife who had given him the family he'd always craved. The mother of his children. He saw it all in that one fleeting, embarrassed glance. Boruto's stubborn chin, Himawari's gentle eyes. His entire world, his reason for being, was embodied in that timid girl who couldn't even look at him. The urge to walk over to her, to say her name, to tell her everything, was so overwhelming it was a physical force. He wanted to promise her that he would protect her, that he would build a world where she and their children would be safe. But he couldn't. He was a 12-year-old clown. So he did what the old Naruto would have done. He puffed out his chest and pointed a thumb at himself. "Just you all watch. My name's gonna be in the history books." He ignored the eye rolls and catcalls and plopped into his usual seat. The seat right next to his target. Sasuke Uchiha sat with a practiced stillness, his hands steepled in front of his face, his dark eyes staring at nothing. He was a portrait of isolation, radiating an aura of cold fury and profound sadness that pushed everyone away. Naruto didn't see the arrogant prodigy anymore. He saw a terrified 8-year-old boy, huddled in a street slick with the blood of his entire clan. He saw the lonely child eating stale rice balls by the river, the weight of a massacre on his tiny shoulders. He saw the seeds of a vengeance that would nearly tear the world apart. "My brother," Naruto thought, the term settling in his soul with the weight of prophecy. "I failed you. I screamed when I should have listened. I challenged you when I should have stood with you. I won't make that mistake again." He was about to say something, anything, when the door opened and Irika-sensei walked in, carrying a clipboard. The familiar scar across his nose, the warm but firm set of his jaw, it was another ghost made real. Iruka, his first father figure, the first person to truly acknowledge him. Naruto felt a lump form in his throat. "All right, settle down everyone," Iruka said, his voice instantly commanding the room's attention. He began his standard speech about the path of a ninja, about loyalty to the village, about the will of fire. Every word was the same as the first time, but Naruto heard them with the ears of a Hokage. He heard the hopes and dreams of a village poured into these children, a village he had watched burn. "Now," Iruka announced, picking up his clipboard, "I will announce the new 3-man genin squads." Team assignments were determined to balance the strengths and abilities of each member. Naruto held his breath, even though he knew what was coming. It felt like the whole world was balancing on the head of a pin. Team 7, Naruto Uzumaki. He instinctively puffed his chest out. Sakura Haruno. He deflated, slumping in his seat with a theatrical groan. Across the room, Sakura's head slammed onto her desk in despair. "I'm doomed," she muttered. Naruto looked at her. The bright pink hair, the wide forehead she was so self-conscious about, the green eyes that were currently filled with absolute dread. He didn't see the annoying fangirl who had only cared about Sasuke. He saw the woman who had mastered the strength of 100 seal. He saw the world's greatest medical nin, a kunoichi whose intellect and chakra control were second to none. He saw the person who had cried for him, who had fought beside him, who had become the sister he never had. And he saw another failure. He had dismissed her, treated her as weak, and in doing so, had held back her potential for years. "And Sasuke Uchiha," Iruka finished. Instantly, Sakura shot up, a miraculous recovery. "Cha! True love wins!" She cheered, her despair replaced with delirious joy. Ino shot her a glare of pure poison. Naruto, however, looked at Sasuke. The Uchiha hadn't moved a muscle. His expression hadn't flickered. But Naruto, with a lifetime of experience reading his brother's micro-expressions, saw it, a minute tightening of his jaw. He was being shackled to the dead last, and an adoring fangirl. It was an insult to his genius. Iruka continued with the other team assignments, but Naruto's world had narrowed to the 3 of them. Team 7. The legendary team that had saved the world, and the broken team that had nearly destroyed it. 2 broken children and a future Hokage in a clown suit. This time, Naruto vowed, a silent oath sworn in the depths of his soul, no one gets left behind. This time, we all come home. Their new Jonin instructor was late. Obnoxiously, predictably late. Sakura paced back and forth in front of the classroom door, her anxiety mounting with every passing minute. "Where is he? All the other teams have gone off with their new teachers. Even Iruka-sensei left." Sasuke sat at his desk, silent and brooding, radiating impatience as a physical force. And Naruto. Naruto was putting on the performance of a lifetime. He balanced a chalkboard eraser in the crack of the sliding door, snickering to himself. "That's what he gets for being late," he declared, a manic grin plastered on his face. "Naruto, you idiot! You can't do that!" Sakura scolded, though she made no move to stop him. "He's a Jonin! You're going to get us in trouble." A Jonin wouldn't fall for such a simple-minded prank, Sasuke scoffed from his seat, not even deigning to look at them. "He's right," the Hokage in Naruto's mind agreed. "But the Kakashi I know will fall for it on purpose. To test us. To gauge our personalities." Internally, Naruto was a coiled spring. He was about to meet his sensei again. Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja, the hero of the Sharingan, the man who had taught him so much and whom he had eventually surpassed to take the Hokage hat. He remembered Kakashi, old and gray, fighting valiantly against Koku's forces before being overwhelmed. Another precious person he had failed to protect. A hand appeared in the door's opening. The 3 genin tensed. The door slid open, revealing a tall man with gravity-defying silver hair and a mask covering the lower half of his face. His visible eye was lazy, bored even. Plop! The eraser fell squarely on top of his head, dusting his silver hair with white chalk. There was a beat of dead silence. Naruto braced himself, ready to burst into laughter. Sakura prepared a frantic apology. Sasuke just watched, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Kakashi blinked. My first impression of you three, he said, his visible eye curving into a smile, is that you're a bunch of idiots. The mood plummeted. They met on the roof, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. Kakashi leaned against the railing, the picture of casual indifference. All right, why don't we start with some introductions, he said lazily. Things you like, things you hate, dreams for the future, hobbies. That sort of thing. Why don't you go first, sensei? Sakura suggested. So we know how it's done. Me? Kakashi mused. My name is Kakashi Hatake. Things I like and things I hate. I don't feel like telling you. My dreams for the future, never really thought about it. As for my hobbies, I have lots of hobbies. Naruto and Sakura's sweat dropped. He was just as cryptic as ever. All they had learned was his name. Okay, you on the right. You first, Kakashi said, pointing at Sakura. Sakura brightened, clasping her hands together. My name is Sakura Haruno. The thing I like is, well, the person I like is... She glanced at Sasuke and squealed, her face turning beet red. My dream for the future is... Another squeal. And the thing I hate is Naruto. Naruto forced a wince. Okay, Sakura-chan. We've got a lot of work to do. Step 1. Build your confidence on something other than a boy who doesn't notice you. Alright. You in the middle, Kakashi gestured to him. Naruto put on his game face. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I like instant ramen in a cup, and I really like the ramen Tsuchiyaji-san makes at Ichiraku. I hate the 3 minutes you have to wait after you pour the water in the ramen cup. And my dream for the future. He stood up, pointing a finger to the sky, the Hokage monument visible behind him, is to become the greatest Hokage. Then the whole village will have to stop disrespecting me and treat me like I'm somebody. Somebody important. The words are the same, Naruto thought, but the meaning is different. The first time, it was a childish plea for recognition. This time, it's a solemn vow. I will take that hat again, not for myself, but to protect all of this. Kakashi's eye watched him, impassive. He's just the loud-mouthed idiot they said he was, Naruto projected with his body language. And finally, the one on the left. My name is Sasuke Uchiha, Sasuke said, his voice low and cold. I hate a lot of things, and I don't particularly like anything. What I have is not a dream, because I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan, and kill a certain man. The air grew heavy. Sakura looked at him with awe and concern. Kakashi's lazy eye sharpened, a flicker of something dark and knowing in its depths. Naruto looked at him with profound pity. He wasn't just hearing the words of a traumatized boy. He was hearing the first notes of a symphony of destruction that had cost millions of lives. Itachi, Naruto thought. Another piece of the puzzle I have to fix. But not today. Today, I just have to save you from yourself. Good, Kakashi said, his tone shifting. You're all unique and have your own ideas. We'll have our first mission tomorrow. A survival exercise. He explained the bell test. How there were only 2 bells, and one of them would be tied to a tree for failing. He told them to meet at Training Ground 3 at 5 a.m. and not to eat breakfast, unless they wanted to puke. The next morning, Naruto was the first to arrive. He didn't eat. His future knowledge was a definite advantage. He sat on a stump, closing his eyes, and began to meditate. It wasn't the advanced sage mode meditation, but a simple breathing exercise to calm his mind and center his focus. The Hokage needed to be in control, not the anxious 12-year-old. He felt the vast, hateful presence of Kurama stirring in his seal, annoyed by the early morning quiet. He ignored it. Sakura arrived next, looking tired but determined. Then Sasuke, looking as aloof as ever. They waited. And waited. 3 hours later, Kakashi appeared in a swirl of leaves. Yo, he said cheerfully. Good morning. Sorry I'm late, I got lost on the path of life. Naruto and Sakura exploded at him. Sasuke just glared. Kakashi ignored them, placing an alarm clock on a stump and setting it for noon. He held up 2 small, silver bells that tinkled musically in the quiet forest. Your task is simple, he explained, his tone becoming serious for the first time. You have until noon to get these bells from me. Those who don't get a bell get no lunch. You'll be tied to one of those posts, and you'll watch me and the others eat. His gaze hardened. The goal is to come at me with the intent to kill. Otherwise, you won't stand a chance. Sakura was aghast. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, a spark of challenge lit within them. Naruto kept his expression neutral. Ready, Kakashi said, his hand hovering over his ninja pouch. Start. In an instant, Sasuke and Sakura vanished into the trees, just as they had the first time. Naruto, however, stayed put. Kakashi's visible eye blinked in surprise. What's wrong? Aren't you going to hide? No, Naruto said, his voice calm and even. The obnoxious, high-pitched tone was gone. It was replaced by a quiet confidence that was more jarring than any shout. He turned his head and called out, his voice carrying clearly through the forest. Sasuke! Sakura! Hold on! Don't attack yet. From the trees, he could feel their surprise. Kakashi tilted his head, intrigued. Oh? A change of plans? Kakashi taunted. What's the dead last going to do? Lecture me to death? Naruto ignored him. Sasuke! Sakura! Come back here! We need to talk. There was a long silence. Then, a rustle of leaves. Sakura dropped down from a branch a few yards away, looking confused. Naruto, what are you doing? He'll kill us. A moment later, Sasuke emerged from the shadows on the other side, his expression a mask of irritation. What is this, dope? Are you trying to get us all killed? I'm handling this myself. No, you're not, Naruto said, turning to face them. He finally looked at Kakashi, who was watching the bizarre scene unfold with growing amusement. Because you can't beat him alone. Neither can I. Neither can Sakura. Speak for yourself, Sasuke sneered. I am, Naruto retorted, his voice sharp. I'm speaking for all of us. Think about it. Use that Uchiha brain of yours for a second. Why would he set up a test like this? He held up 3 fingers. There are 3 of us. He then pointed at the 2 bells tinkling on Kakashi's belt. There are 2 bells. From the very beginning, this test is designed to make one of us fail. It's meant to pit us against each other. Sakura's eyes widened in dawning comprehension. Sasuke's expression remained stony, but Naruto could see a flicker of thought behind his eyes. He's a Jonin, Naruto continued, his voice low and intense. A legendary shinobi. The copy ninja, Kakashi of the Sharingan. He fought in the 3rd Great Ninja War. Do you honestly believe that one of us, fresh out of the academy, can take a bell from him? It's impossible. So what's your point? Sasuke demanded. That we should just give up. No, Naruto said, shaking his head. My point is that we're looking at the problem all wrong. This isn't a test of our individual skill. If it were, they would have tested us one-on-one. This is a test of something else. Iruka-sensei said they balanced the teams for a reason. What's the one thing 3 genin might be able to do that one can't? He let the question hang in the air. The forest was silent except for the chirping of birds. Sakura gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Teamwork. She whispered. Naruto nodded at her, a small, encouraging smile on his face. Exactly. The purpose of this test isn't to get a bell. The purpose is to prove we can work together as a team. If we try to fight him alone, we'll be picked off one by one. But if we work together, if we combine our skills, we might just have a chance. Kakashi hadn't moved. He was still leaning against the tree, but his lazy posture was gone. His eye was no longer bored. It was sharp, analytical, and fixed squarely on Naruto. The air of amusement had evaporated, replaced by a chillingly intense curiosity. This was not the boy he had read about in the file. A nice theory, Naruto, Kakashi's voice cut in, but a theory is all it is. The clock is ticking. Sasuke scoffed, though it lacked its earlier conviction. Teamwork? With you? You're the dead last. You just get in my way. The old Naruto would have screamed. He would have risen to the bait, challenged Sasuke, and the fragile alliance would have shattered. The Hokage, however, did something different. He met Sasuke's glare without flinching, his blue eyes calm and serious. Am I? Naruto asked quietly. Or is that just what you want to believe because it's easier than relying on someone else? You're a genius, Sasuke. I'm not denying that. You're probably the most skilled genin to come out of the academy in years. But right now, your genius is focused on the wrong target. The goal isn't to prove you're better than me. The goal is to pass this test. Do you want to prove your individual strength and fail, tied to that post? Or do you want to work with us, show him what we can do together, and become a genin? He let the logic sink in. He wasn't appealing to friendship. He was appealing to Sasuke's pragmatism and his pride. Failing was a greater insult than cooperating with the dobe. Sasuke was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes searching Naruto's face. He saw no trace of the usual loud-mouthed idiocy. He saw a stranger looking out of Naruto's eyes, someone with an unnerving level of certainty. What's the plan? Sasuke finally gritted out. Naruto felt a surge of triumph, but he kept his face a neutral mask. This was the first, most crucial victory. It's simple, he said, quickly outlining his strategy. It was a strategy born from a lifetime of battle experience, distilled into something 3 rookies could execute. It's a 3-pronged attack. A diversion, a trap, and a strike. He turned to Sakura. Sakura, you have the best chakra control and you're the smartest one here when it comes to theory. You're our trap. Find a good spot, lay a simple tripwire, a pitfall, anything, something to momentarily distract or immobilize him. Your job isn't to fight him, just to create an opening. Sakura looked stunned to be addressed with such respect, her skills acknowledged as a vital part of the plan. She nodded, her expression firming with a new sense of purpose. Right. He then turned to Sasuke. Sasuke, you're the fastest and have the Sharingan. You're our strike. The moment Sakura's trap springs, you move in. Your only goal is the bells. Not to fight him, not to beat him. Just grab the bells and get out. Speed is everything. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. It was a role that suited his skills and his ego. And what about you, Do? He asked. What's your part? Naruto grinned, and for a second, the old, familiar Naruto was back. Me? I get the most important job of all. He turned and faced Kakashi, who was now openly watching them, his head tilted. I'm the diversion, Naruto said. I'm going to do what I do best. Be a loud, obnoxious, and utterly irresistible target. Without another word, he formed a cross-shaped hand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 4 perfect clones of Naruto popped into existence around him. Kakashi's single eye widened. Not just at the jutsu itself, a Jonin-level technique, but at the proficiency. There was no puff of smoke from a failed attempt, no deformed clone. 5 identical, solid-looking Narutos now stood before him. All right, guys. The 5 Narutos shouted in unison. Let's get him. They charged. It was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. The 5 Narutos attacked Kakashi from all sides, yelling, throwing sloppy punches and kicks. It was the exact kind of frontal assault Kakashi expected from the boy. He dodged and weaved effortlessly, his movements fluid and economical. He was a dance master, and the Narutos were clumsy children. But the real Naruto, the Hokage, was in control of all 5 bodies. He wasn't trying to land a hit. He was hurting Kakashi. With every failed punch and every clumsy leap, he was subtly maneuvering their sensei towards the small clearing where he knew Sakura was waiting. He used his future knowledge, remembering Kakashi's tendencies, his fondness for substitution, his habit of reading his opponent's obvious moves. Is that all you've got, Naruto? Kakashi taunted, easily catching a clone's fist and tossing it into another. I'm starting to get bored. As he spoke, his hand casually drifted towards the pouch on his hip. There it is, Naruto thought. The Aika. Just as Kakashi was about to pull out his book, confident that the assault was no threat, the real Naruto, hiding amongst the clones, gave the signal. One of the clones yelled, "He's not even taking us seriously. Let's try that thing." The thing was nothing. But it made Kakashi hesitate for a fraction of a second, his curiosity piqued. In that instant, his foot snagged on a nearly invisible wire stretched between 2 roots. It was Sakura's trap. Simple. Elegant. Effective. Kakashi's eyes widened in genuine surprise as he stumbled forward, his balance broken for a single, critical moment. Now, Sasuke! Naruto roared. From the canopy above, a black blur shot downwards like a hawk. Sasuke, his Sharingan blazing to life, moved with a speed and precision that was stunning for a genin. He wasn't aiming for Kakashi's body. His eyes were locked on the two silver bells at his waist. The plan was perfect. Kakashi was off balance, the Narutos were blocking his retreat, and Sasuke was incoming with unstoppable momentum. They were going to do it. But Kakashi Hatake wasn't a legendary ninja for nothing. In the split second he was falling, he performed a substitution jutsu. The Kakashi that stumbled into Sakura's trap dissolved into a log. The real Kakashi appeared behind Sasuke, midair. Too slow, Kakashi's voice said, right next to Sasuke's ear. But Naruto had been waiting for this. He had fought alongside Kakashi for years. He knew his sensei's favorite counters. Behind you! Naruto yelled to Sasuke, even as he dispelled his clones and launched himself forward, a kunai in hand. Sasuke, thanks to the warning and his Sharingan, reacted instantly. He twisted his body in midair, abandoning the bells and lashing out with a kick aimed at the new Kakashi. Kakashi blocked it easily, but the counterattack had been thwarted. Sasuke used the momentum to flip away, landing crouched near Sakura. Naruto engaged Kakashi directly, kunai against kunai. The screech of metal on metal rang through the clearing. Naruto was hopelessly outmatched in taijutsu, but he wasn't trying to win. He was just buying time, his eyes darting around. Sakura! Sasuke! Now! Formation Ino Shikacho, our version! Naruto yelled, using the famous trio's name as a code he had just invented. Sakura, understanding immediately, began throwing a volley of kunai, not at Kakashi, but at the trees around him, forcing him to stay in the open. Sasuke, meanwhile, formed the hand seals for his clan's signature jutsu, fire style, fireball jutsu. A massive orb of flame erupted from Sasuke's mouth, roaring towards Kakashi. It was a powerful attack, one that forced Kakashi to leap straight up into the air to avoid it, and that's where Naruto wanted him. Got you! Naruto yelled, having anticipated this exact move. He had already thrown a kunai with a wire attached into the branch directly above. As Kakashi leaped, Naruto yanked the wire. A hidden branch, pre-cut by one of his clones earlier, swung down like a pendulum, smacking Kakashi squarely in the back and knocking him out of the air. He fell to the ground in a heap. For a moment, all three genin stared, panting. Had they done it? Had they actually knocked him down? The Kakashi on the ground fizzled and turned into another log. Up here, a lazy voice called out. They looked up. Kakashi was sitting on a high branch, holding the two bells in one hand. His other hand held his little orange book. He hadn't even broken a sweat, but his visible eye, it was no longer lazy or analytical. It was wide with something that looked almost like shock. His gaze wasn't on the fireball scorch mark, or the sprung traps. It was fixed on Naruto. The time's almost up, Kakashi said, his voice strangely subdued. They had failed to get the bells. A sense of despair began to settle over Sakura. Sasuke gritted his teeth in frustration, but Naruto grinned. A real, genuine grin this time. It doesn't matter. The alarm clock on the stump began to ring, its shrill cry signaling noon. They stood before the three posts, defeated. Or so it seemed. Well, Kakashi said, appearing before them. The results are in. None of you got a bell. So, none of you pass. Sakura's face fell. Sasuke looked furious. You're all going back to the academy, Kakashi finished. But we worked together. Sakura protested. Naruto said the point was teamwork. We did that. We listened to him. Indeed, Kakashi said, his eye boring into Naruto. You did. And you, he said, pointing at Naruto, came up with a brilliant plan. You predicted my moves, you used your teammates' skills perfectly, and you even managed to land a few surprises. Your use of a feint within a diversion was Jonin-level thinking. He then looked at Sasuke. You suppressed your pride and followed a teammate's plan for the greater good. He looked at Sakura. And you provided crucial support, and had the sense to understand the true nature of the test. In theory, you did everything right. So why did we fail? Naruto asked, playing his part. Kakashi sighed, snapping his book shut. Because in the end, the test wasn't just about teamwork. It was about putting the mission and your comrades above the rules. The real answer was to break the rules together to ensure the team's survival. He paused. But that's a lesson for another day. Because despite all that, you all pass. The three genin stared at him, utterly bewildered. Huh! Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke said in unison. Kakashi's eye curved into its familiar smile. The first rule of the ninja is to look underneath the underneath. The academy produces soldiers. I was testing to see if you could become a team. Previous groups were all sheep who did exactly what I said. They played my game, turned on each other for the bells, and failed. You three, you were the first to defy the premise of the test from the very beginning. You decided to work together to challenge the instructor. He walked over and ruffled Naruto's hair. Especially you. You were the catalyst. He turned to leave. Team 7's first mission starts tomorrow. Don't be late. As he walked away, Sasuke looked over at Naruto, his expression a complex mixture of shock, frustration, and a grudging respect he clearly didn't know how to process. Sakura was beaming, looking between her two teammates, as if seeing them for the first time as a unit. They had passed. They were officially Team 7. Later that evening, as the sun set, Kakashi stood before the memorial stone, his gaze tracing the names carved into the black granite. The name Obito Uchiha seemed to stand out. You said those who break the rules are scum, he thought, his hand resting on the cold stone. But those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum. He had seen that principle today. But he had seen something else, too. Something unsettling. He replayed the test in his mind. Naruto's sudden shift from class clown to tactical genius was more than just getting serious. It wasn't the blossoming of a hidden talent. It was the chilling efficiency of a veteran. The way he had spoken, the way he had analyzed the test, the way he had predicted Kakashi's own moves, even the substitution jutsu trick. It was beyond a prodigy. It was precognition. He hadn't just been guessing. He had known. The shadow clone jutsu was one thing. Some kids unlocked powerful techniques by accident. But the strategic mind behind it? The calm, confident leadership that had bent even an Uchiha prodigy to his will? Kakashi Hatake, the man who had seen everything, who was famed for his perception, looked at the name of his old sensei, Minato Namikaze, carved on the stone. Sensei, he thought, his single uncovered eye narrowed in deep, profound suspicion. Your son, he's not the boy I was told he was. He's not an idiot. He's not a simple-minded brat. A cold knot of curiosity and concern tightened in his gut. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. And I have absolutely no idea who or what is inside him. The morning after the bell test, a fragile, unspoken truce hung over Team 7. They met in front of the mission assignment desk, a tangible awkwardness separating them. Sakura kept glancing from Naruto to Sasuke, a confused frown on her face, as if trying to solve a complex equation. Sasuke stood with his arms crossed, his default posture of aloofness looking more like a defensive wall than ever. He was refusing to look at Naruto, but it wasn't the dismissal of before. It was a pointed, deliberate avoidance, as if eye contact would force him to acknowledge the baffling events of the previous day. And Naruto, the epicenter of their confusion, was playing his part. He had a piece of toast hanging out of his mouth, and was practically vibrating with feigned energy. All right. What's our first mission gonna be? Rescuing a princess? Fighting off bandits? I'm ready for anything, believe it! He declared around his breakfast. Kakashi appeared in his usual swirl of leaves, precisely on time for a change, which only added to the strangeness of the day. Good morning, team. Your first S-rank mission can wait. Today, we start with the fundamentals. Their first official mission was not rescuing a princess. It was pulling weeds from the garden of a civilian client. The indignity was palpable. Sakura sighed dramatically, and Sasuke's glower intensified to the point that Naruto was half surprised the weeds weren't shriveling up in fear. The old Naruto would have been screaming his head off, complaining louder than anyone. But the Hokage in the boy's body saw an opportunity. He watched his teammates for a few minutes. Sasuke was ruthlessly efficient, yanking weeds out with sharp, angry tugs, his Uchiha perfectionism on full display. Sakura was more methodical but distracted, her mind clearly elsewhere. They were working as individuals, a collection of parts, not a team. Naruto crouched down next to Sakura, who flinched, expecting an insult or a prank. "Hey, Sakura-chan," he began, keeping his voice light and friendly. "You're really smart, right? You always got the best scores on the written tests." Sakura blinked, caught off guard by the compliment. Yeah? So what? I was just thinking," Naruto continued, plucking a stubborn weed, "about what Kakashi-sensei said. About looking underneath the underneath. This mission seems boring, but maybe it's just more training." He gestured to her hands. "You're using way too much energy. You're just pulling. But what if you used your chakra?" "Use my chakra? To pull weeds?" she asked, skeptical. "Yeah. I bet you have the best chakra control out of all of us," he lied, though he knew it would one day be true. "Remember those leaf-sticking exercises? What if you sent just a tiny bit of chakra to your fingertips? Not enough to rip the plant, but just enough to loosen the soil around the roots from below. It'd be way more efficient. It's probably how, like medical nin does super precise stuff." He had planted the seed. Medical nin. Precision. He was connecting her book smarts and her natural talent for control to a practical, high-level application, disguising it as a simple tip for a boring chore. Sakura stared at her hands, then at the weed patch. A thoughtful expression crossed her face. Hesitantly, she placed her hand on the ground and closed her eyes, concentrating. A faint glimmer of green, almost invisible, coated her fingertips. She took a deep breath and pulled. A large, stubborn weed slid out of the earth with its entire root system intact, almost effortlessly. Her eyes shot open, wide with surprise and a flicker of pride. It worked. See? I told you were a genius at this stuff." Naruto grinned, giving her a thumbs up before moving on. He left her to her work, a new focus in her eyes. She was no longer just pulling weeds, she was practicing a skill. She was seeing, for the first time, a potential in herself that had nothing to do with impressing Sasuke. Naruto then moved over to the Uchiha's patch. "Race ya, Sasuke," he declared, reverting to his boisterous persona. Sasuke just scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous, dope. What's the matter? Scared the dead last will beat you at gardening?" Naruto taunted, but his tone was different from before. It was less of a desperate challenge and more of a playful jab. Before Sasuke could retort, Kakashi's lazy voice drifted over from the porch where he was, inevitably, reading his orange book. "You know, there is a team record for this particular garden, set by a genin team a few years back. I doubt you three could beat it though." That was all it took. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. It was no longer about beating Naruto. It was about beating an abstract record. It was about proving Team 7 was the best. "What's the record?" Sasuke asked, his voice sharp. Naruto seized the opening. "Doesn't matter. We'll smash it. Come on, Sasuke, you take that side, I'll take this one. Sakura-chan's already got the middle figured out. Let's show him what Team 7 can do." He had reframed the entire task. It was no longer a chore. It was a mission. It was no longer a competition between them, but a challenge for them as a unit. Sasuke gave a curt, almost imperceptible nod and began working with a renewed, focused fury. The rivalry was still there, but Naruto had subtly aimed it at an external target instead of inward, at each other. They beat the record by 10 minutes. Their client was ecstatic. Kakashi just gave an eye smile, but Naruto could see the calculating glint behind it. The wolf was putting on a very interesting show. This pattern continued through a week of D-rank missions. Painting fences became an exercise in coordinated movement and speed. Shopping for groceries became a lesson in stealth and information gathering as Naruto challenged them to get everything without the shopkeepers noticing their ninja presence. And then came the ultimate D-rank trial, Tora the cat. "I hate that cat," Naruto muttered under his breath, a moment of his true self slipping through as Kakashi read the mission scroll. He remembered countless hours spent chasing the demonic feline. "Target confirmed," Kakashi said into the radio headset. "Tora has been spotted in the northern woods. Commence operation." The first time, it had been a chaotic mess. Naruto had charged in, Sasuke had tried to be a lone hero, and Sakura had been largely useless. This time, Naruto held up a hand before anyone could move. Wait. Let's do this smart. They huddled up, out of sight of Kakashi, who was observing from a treetop. Okay, Naruto began, a map of the area drawn in the dirt. This cat is faster than it looks, and it knows the terrain. Chasing it is pointless. We need to hurt it. He looked at his teammates. Sasuke, you're the fastest. You'll be the hammer. Your job is to flush Tora out and keep pressure on it, forcing it in one direction. Don't try to grab it, just scare it. Sasuke nodded, accepting the role. It played to his strengths. Sakura-chan, you're our eyes. You'll take the high ground. Your job is to track Tora's movements and call out its position to us. Your perception is key here. You need to predict where it's going to go. This was a task that required intelligence and observation, not brute strength. It was a perfect role for her. She nodded, her expression serious. And you? Sasuke asked. Naruto grinned. On the net. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 4 clones popped into existence. My clones and I will spread out along this ridge, he explained, pointing on his dirt map. We'll create a wall it can't get past. Sasuke, you drive it towards us. Sakura, you guide him. We'll box it in, and once it's trapped, I'll make the grab. It was a simple pincer movement, a classic shinobi tactic. But for 3 fresh genin applying it to catch a runaway cat, it was revolutionary. Let's move! The plan worked flawlessly. Sakura, perched in a tall tree, spotted the ribbon on Tora's ear. Target sighted. Moving west towards the river. She called out, her voice clear and confident. On it, Sasuke's voice crackled over the radio. A moment later, Sakura saw him, a black-clad blur moving through the trees, not chasing Tora but flanking it, using thrown pebbles to cut off its escape routes. He's turning north. Heading for the ridge. Naruto, he's coming your way. We see him. Naruto replied. He and his clones formed a line. As the terrified cat burst through the undergrowth, it was met with a wall of orange jumpsuits. It skidded to a halt, hissing, its back arched. It looked left then right. Trapped. Naruto, the real one, slowly approached from the front, hands held out placatingly. Easy there, kitty. With the cat's attention fixed on him, another Naruto clone dropped silently from a branch above, scooping the demonic fluff ball up in one swift, practiced motion. The cat barely had time to yowl and protest before it was securely in his arms. Target acquired, Naruto said into his radio, a wide grin on his face. Mission accomplished, believe it. They returned to the client, the daimyo's wife, who smothered the poor cat in a hug that probably made it wish it were still being hunted by ninja. As they left, Sakura was practically glowing. We did it! We actually worked as a team and it was easy, Sasuke grunted, but he couldn't hide the flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. Their perfect execution was a testament to his speed and her perception. It was a victory he had to share, and to his surprise, it didn't taste bitter. Naruto watched them, a quiet warmth spreading through his chest. It was working. He was replacing the cracked foundation of their team with something solid, brick by brick, mission by mission. His mentorship wasn't just confined to missions. He began to actively seek out his teammates during their downtime. One afternoon, he found Sakura heading to the library. Hey, Sakura-chan! What you up to? Studying, she said, holding up a thick book on ninja history. A good kunoichi needs to be smart, too. Naruto saw the change in her wording. Not to impress Sasuke-kun, but to be a good kunoichi. The seeds were sprouting. Cool, mind if I join you? He asked. She gave him a strange look but shrugged. It's a free library. They sat in a quiet corner. While Sakura studied, Naruto browsed the shelves. He wasn't really looking for anything until his eyes, guided by a Hokage's memory, landed on a specific section, medical ninjutsu. He pulled out a dusty, foundational scroll. Introduction to Medical Chakra, Principles and Control. He brought it back to the table and opened it, pretending to read. He made a few noises of confusion, scratching his head. Man, this stuff is complicated, he said, loud enough for her to hear. It's all about positive and negative energy, cell regeneration. It says only ninja with perfect, pinpoint chakra control can even attempt it. He saw her ears perk up. It says here that medical nin are the most valuable shinobi on any team, because one medic can save an entire squad, he continued, reading from the scroll. Wow. That's amazing. They're like the ultimate support. Protecting everyone from the inside out. He accidentally pushed the scroll more towards her side of the table. This is way over my head. My chakra control is terrible. You're the smart one with the good control, Sakura-chan. You'd probably understand this in 5 minutes. He then stood up. Well, I'm gonna go get some ramen. See ya later. He left. He glanced back from the library door. Sakura was staring at the scroll he had left behind. Slowly, cautiously, she reached out and pulled it towards her. A new, intense curiosity lit her green eyes as she began to read. He had given her a path, a way to channel her intelligence and talent into a role that was undeniably powerful and heroic. He had given her a new dream. Dealing with Sasuke required a different approach. Respect and challenge, in equal measure. He found him at their usual training ground, practicing his shuriken jutsu, embedding each star perfectly in the center of a target. Instead of shouting a challenge, Naruto just walked up and started his own warm-ups. He stretched, ran through some basic katas, his movements clean and efficient, honed by decades of war. Sasuke stopped, watching him out of the corner of his eye. Naruto's sloppy, wide movements were gone, replaced by a compact, purposeful form that wasted no energy. You've improved, Sasuke stated. It wasn't a compliment. It was an observation, a puzzle he was trying to solve. Been practicing, Naruto said simply. Spar with me. It wasn't a challenge. It was a request. Sasuke considered it, then nodded, slipping into his clan's interceptor fist stance. Don't cry when you lose, Dobe. Wouldn't dream of it, Naruto grinned. They engaged. The first time they had sparred, it had been a beatdown. Sasuke had been faster, stronger, more skilled in every conceivable way. This time, it was different. Sasuke was still faster. His attacks were still more precise. But Naruto met them. He didn't overpower Sasuke. He redirected him. He used his knowledge of Sasuke's future fighting style, the way he favored quick, linear attacks, to his advantage. When Sasuke threw a punch, Naruto was already moving, not to block, but to use Sasuke's momentum against him, forcing him off balance. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to teach. They broke apart, both panting slightly. Sasuke was staring at him, his Sharingan not yet active, but his dark eyes wide with shock and frustration. How? Sasuke breathed. You're not any faster. But you knew where I was going to be. You're predictable, Naruto said bluntly. Sasuke's eyes flashed with anger. That's not an insult, Naruto added quickly. It's an observation. You're a genius, so you always go for the most efficient, direct attack. But that makes you easy to read if your opponent is just focused on defending. You need to add more feints. Be less direct. He was giving his greatest rival advice. He was treating him not as a mountain to be conquered, but as a teammate to be sharpened. We need to get stronger, Naruto said, his voice dropping the playful tone and becoming serious, the voice of the Hokage bleeding through. There are people out there, monsters, that we won't be able to beat alone. Not even you, with your Sharingan. We have to get stronger together. So that we can protect the things that matter. He didn't say to become Hokage or to surpass you. He said to protect. The word hung in the air between them, resonating with the deepest trauma in Sasuke's soul, his failure to protect his family. Sasuke stared at him, the anger in his eyes slowly being replaced by a deep, contemplative look. Naruto was no longer just a rival. He was a benchmark, a training partner, and a problem he couldn't solve. And for someone like Sasuke, a problem he couldn't solve was infinitely more interesting than an obstacle he could easily overcome. Again, Sasuke said, his voice a low command as he settled back into his stance. Naruto grinned. You got it. The final piece of the foundation had to be laid. It was the riskiest move of all, a gamble that could either cement their bond forever or shatter it completely. He had to tell them his secret, but he had to do it his way, on his terms. The opportunity came after a particularly grueling day of training with Kakashi. Their sensei had run them through chakra control exercises, tree climbing and water walking, and Naruto had to pretend to struggle, an infuriating but necessary deception. By the end of the day, they were all physically and mentally exhausted, sitting around a small campfire they had built in the training ground as dusk painted the sky in hues of purple and orange. Kakashi had already left, giving them a curt good work before vanishing. They were alone. The exhaustion had lowered their guards, creating a rare moment of quiet camaraderie. Sakura was tending to a small scrape on Naruto's arm with a bandage from her pouch, a gesture that was becoming more common. Sasuke was silently staring into the flames, lost in thought. Naruto knew this was the moment. The atmosphere was perfect. Intimate. Vulnerable. He took a deep breath, steeling his resolve. He channeled a tiny, almost undetectable thread of Kurama's chakra to the surface. It was the raw, hateful chakra of the young, imprisoned fox, not the warm, familiar energy of his old partner. He let out a sharp gasp, clutching his stomach as a flash of red chakra, visible for only a split second in the firelight, flared around him. He hunched over, his face contorted in a mask of genuine, remembered pain. "Naruto?" Sakura cried out, her hands hovering over him, unsure of what to do. Even Sasuke was jolted out of his reverie, his head snapping up, his eyes wide and alert. "What's wrong with you?" It's nothing," Naruto gritted out, forcing himself to straighten up. He kept his expression pained, his breathing heavy. "It just happens sometimes." "What happens?" Sakura pressed, her voice filled with concern. "Was it something from training? You should go to the hospital." Naruto shook his head, looking down at his hands. He had their full attention. "Now for the truth. Or a version of it. You guys ever feel like there's something inside you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Something that doesn't belong? Something that everyone hates you for, even though you didn't ask for it, even if it's not your fault?" His words, born from a lifetime of loneliness, were utterly authentic. Sakura looked confused. But Sasuke went unnaturally still. Naruto's words had struck a chord deep within him, resonating with the curse of his own clan's history and the burden of his own hatred. "What are you talking about, Naruto?" Sakura asked gently. Naruto looked up, his blue eyes shimmering in the firelight, filled with a sadness so profound it made him look ancient. "You know how everyone in the village, the adults, look at me? How they whisper. Why I've been alone my whole life." He took a shaky breath. "It's because of what happened 12 years ago. The day the nine-tailed fox attacked the village." He lifted the edge of his shirt, his hand hovering over the swirling black ink of the 8 trigram seal on his stomach. "The fourth Hokage. He couldn't kill the nine tails. A bijou is just a mass of living chakra. It can't be destroyed. It can only be sealed. He needed a container, a newborn baby, whose chakra coils were still developing." The realization dawned on Sakura's face first. Her skin went pale, and her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror and understanding. "No," she breathed. Sasuke's expression was unreadable, a mask of stone, but his knuckles were white where he gripped his knees. He understood what it meant to have your life defined by a single, catastrophic night. "He sealed the fox inside of me," Naruto finished, his voice cracking with emotion he didn't have to fake. "I'm not the fox. I'm the cage that holds it. I'm its jailer. But nobody else sees that. They just see the monster." He finally looked at them, bracing himself for the verdict. For the fear. The disgust. The rejection. Sakura was the first to move. Tears were streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of empathy. She remembered all the times she had called him an idiot, all the times she had been annoyed by him. She saw his desperate pleas for attention, his obnoxious pranks, his lonely apartment filled with ramen cups, all in a new, heartbreaking light. It wasn't just him being annoying. It was a cry for help from a boy who had carried the village's greatest burden and its deepest hatred since the day he was born. She shuffled closer and hesitantly placed a hand on his shoulder. "Naruto," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I never knew." Naruto felt a wave of relief so powerful it almost made him dizzy. One down. One to go. He looked at Sasuke. The Uchiha was silent, his bangs obscuring his eyes as he stared into the fire. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. This was the moment that would define their future. Sasuke, whose entire family was slaughtered by a monster in human form, was now faced with a monster on his own team. Finally, Sasuke spoke, his voice low and devoid of emotion. The fourth Hokage was your father. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. A deduction? Naruto's blood ran cold. How? How could he know that? Sasuke looked up, and for the first time, Naruto saw not just anger or rivalry in his eyes, but the cold, analytical brilliance of a true genius. Only a seal master of the highest caliber could create a seal that complex. The fourth was the greatest of his time. And the Uzumaki clan were famous for their sealing jutsu. Your name. The fourth's wife was Kushina Uzumaki. And no Hokage would ever ask another parent to sacrifice their child for a burden they wouldn't bear themselves. He wouldn't have used anyone else's son. He used his own. Naruto was speechless. He had planned for every contingency except this one. Sasuke, with a few scraps of information and pure deductive reasoning, had just uncovered the greatest secret in Konoha. Sasuke looked from Naruto's stunned face back to the fire. His expression was still hard, but something in it had shifted. Naruto hadn't just revealed the secret. He had revealed a truth that mirrored Sasuke's own. Both of their lives had been irrevocably destroyed and defined by the actions of a legendary ninja they were supposed to admire, the fourth Hokage for Naruto, and Itachi Uchiha for Sasuke. Both were left alone, carrying burdens they never asked for. They weren't just rivals. They were parallels. Sasuke let out a quiet breath. He finally looked at Naruto, his dark eyes meeting Naruto's blue ones across the fire. He grunted, the sound soft. It doesn't change anything. He then added, so quietly Naruto almost missed it, we're still a team. It was the most profound declaration of loyalty Sasuke was capable of making. It wasn't an acceptance of the monster. It was an acceptance of Naruto. The boy. The teammate. The fellow survivor. High above, hidden in the branches of a massive oak tree, a silver-haired Jonin lowered his copy of Ika Paradise, the book completely forgotten. Kakashi had been watching the entire scene unfold, his heart pounding in his chest. He had expected Naruto's secret to come out eventually, probably through Mizuki or some other enemy, to be used as a weapon. He had never, in his wildest dreams, expected the boy to reveal it himself, to his team. To use his greatest weakness, his most painful secret, as a tool to build trust. It was a strategic masterstroke of such breathtaking audacity that it left Kakashi speechless. He had controlled the narrative. He had presented himself as a victim and a hero, the jailer, not the prisoner. He had turned a source of fear and isolation into a foundation for an unbreakable bond. And Sasuke. Sasuke had deduced Minato's secret. Kakashi's mind reeled. This team, this wasn't just a promising genin squad. This was something else entirely. A fangirl rapidly discovering her potential as a prodigy medic. An Uchiha whose deductive intellect rivaled his Sharingan. And a Jinchuriki who led them with the strategic mind of a veteran Kage and the heart of a messiah. He looked down at the three children sitting by the fire. They were no longer three separate, broken pieces. Naruto had taken those pieces and with careful, deliberate hands had begun to forge them into something new. Something strong. Something dangerous. A true bond had been forged in the heart of Team 7. And Kakashi Hatake, for the first time since his own team had fallen apart, felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in a very long time, a terrifying, exhilarating hope. The Hokage's office was filled with the familiar scent of old paper and pipe tobacco. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, the man they called the professor, sat behind his desk, looking every bit his age. The lines on his face seemed deeper than Naruto remembered, the weight of the village heavier on his shoulders. He had survived the future that Naruto came from for a few more months, only to be cut down by Orochimaru. Looking at him now, alive and well, Naruto felt a familiar pang of grief and resolve. A C rank, huh? You're sure they're ready, Kakashi? Hiruzen asked, his voice a low rumble as he looked at the mission scroll. Kakashi stood before the desk, his single visible eye conveying a seriousness that was becoming more common. They are, Lord Third. Their teamwork is unprecedented. I've never seen a rookie squad synergize this quickly. Naruto, in particular, has shown a level of tactical acumen far beyond his years. Naruto, standing between a nervous Sakura and a stoic Sasuke, had to suppress a wince. Kakashi's intense scrutiny was a double-edged sword. It validated their strength, but it also painted a massive target on Naruto's back. He needed to be careful. A wolf in sheep's clothing could only maintain the disguise for so long. Very well, Hiruzen said, stamping the scroll. Your mission is to escort a client back to his home. A simple bodyguard detail. The client's name is Tazuna. He is a master bridge builder from the Land of Waves. Naruto's blood ran cold. The Land of Waves. This was it. The first true point of divergence. The Bell test had been an internal affair, a shift in their team dynamic. This mission was their first step onto the world stage. It was the mission where they first encountered an S-rank threat. It was where Haku's tragic story unfolded, and where Sasuke first awakened his Sharingan in a true life-or-death battle. It was where Naruto had first used the Nine-Tails power in a real fight, a terrifying loss of control that had scarred him for years. This time will be different, he vowed, his gaze hardening. No one dies on my watch. Not this time. They met their client at the village gates. Tazuna was exactly as Naruto remembered, a grizzled, cynical old man who smelled faintly of sake and sawdust. He took one look at the three genin and scoffed. This is what they send me. A bunch of snot-nosed kids? Especially the short one with the stupid look on his face. The old Naruto would have exploded in righteous indignation. The Hokage simply smiled, a wide, goofy grin that was pure performance. Don't worry, old man. I'm a super elite ninja who's gonna be Hokage someday. You're in good hands, believe it. Tazuna grumbled but relented, and they set off, leaving the safety of Konoha's walls behind. The walk was pleasant at first. Sakura, full of nervous energy, peppered Tazuna with questions about bridge building. Sasuke walked in silence, his senses on high alert, scanning the trees. Naruto walked beside Kakashi, keeping up his idiotic chatter while his mind raced, cataloging every detail of the road, every tree, every shadow. He knew what was coming. The question was not if, but when. He didn't have to wait long. As they walked along a dirt path flanked by woods, Naruto's heightened senses, a gift from his future self, picked up the subtle shift in the air. The temperature drop, the scent of ozone. He glanced at the ground. There it was. A puddle, on a clear, hot day, after a week with no rain. It was the laziest, most arrogant ambush setup he had ever seen. He didn't break his stride. He didn't tense up. He simply leaned over to his sensei, as if sharing a dumb joke. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, he whispered, his voice low and urgent, masked by a grin. Puddle. 10 o'clock. On a dry day, Kakashi didn't even turn his head. His lazy eye, which had been half closed, flicked towards the puddle. Naruto saw the barest flicker of acknowledgement, a minute tensing in his shoulders. He had seen it. He was ready. As they walked past the puddle, Naruto deliberately stayed close to Tazuna, positioning himself between the client and the ambush point. Sakura was on the other side. Sasuke was a few paces ahead. The moment they passed, the puddle erupted. Two figures burst forth, chains tipped with vicious claws lashing out. Their target was Kakashi. First. One of them snarled. Second. The other echoed. The chains wrapped around Kakashi, pulling taut. With a sickening sound, the copy ninja was torn to shreds. Sakura screamed. Tazuna's eyes went wide with terror. But Naruto and Sasuke didn't even flinch. They had seen Kakashi's almost imperceptible hand seal just before the attack. A substitution. Sakura, protect Tazuna. Get behind me. Naruto commanded, his voice sharp and clear, cutting through her panic. The boisterous idiot was gone, replaced in an instant by a field commander. She responded immediately, her training kicking in, pulling the terrified bridge builder behind her and drawing a kunai. Sasuke was already moving. As the two enemy ninja, the demon brothers, Gozu and Meizu, realized their mistake, Sasuke acted. He threw a shuriken that pinned their chain to a tree, then kicked off the trunk, landing between them. With a fluid grace that was breathtaking, he drove an elbow into one's neck and a heel into the other's gut. They collapsed stunned. Before they could recover, the real Kakashi dropped from a tree above them, landing silently. Nice work, Sasuke. You too, Naruto. Good call. He incapacitated the two rogue ninja from the hidden mist, tying them to a tree. The poison on their claws was already starting to take effect. You knew? Sasuke asked, his gaze flicking between Kakashi and Naruto. How did you know, Do? Naruto shrugged, his goofy grin returning as if a switch had been flipped. Huh? Oh, that? I just thought it was weird there was a puddle when it hasn't rained. Lucky guess, I guess. Sasuke stared at him, his suspicion palpable. A lucky guess? The dead last, who couldn't tell a kunai from a scroll a week ago, was now spotting high-level ambushes. It didn't add up. Kakashi, however, was looking at Tazuna, his expression grim. Chunin from the hidden mist. Specialists in silent killing. A simple escort mission shouldn't warrant this kind of attention. You have some explaining to do, Tazuna-san. Cornered, the bridge builder confessed. He told them about the Land of Waves, a small, poor nation suffocated by the economic stranglehold of a shipping magnate named Gato. Gato controlled the seas, the only way in or out. The bridge Tazuna was building was the people's only hope for freedom, a connection to the mainland that would break Gato's monopoly. That was why Gato wanted him dead. He had lied about the mission's rank because he couldn't afford a B rank, or higher. Sakura was indignant at the lie. Sasuke was indifferent. Naruto just listened, his heart heavy. He knew this story. But hearing it again, seeing the desperation in the old man's eyes, it felt new. We should return to the village, Kakashi said, his tone final. This mission is beyond your current capabilities. We need to report this and reevaluate. No! Naruto exclaimed. All eyes turned to him. We can't, he said, his voice quiet but firm. Look at him, sensei. He pointed at Tazuna, who looked utterly defeated. This old man is risking his life, fighting for his home, for his family, for all the people in his country. He's a hero. We're shinobi of the hidden leaf. We protect people. If we turn back now, he dies. The bridge doesn't get built. And Gato wins. That's not what the will of fire is about. He was echoing the same sentiment he had the first time, but the words carried a different weight. They weren't the naive proclamations of a boy who wanted to be a hero. They were the steadfast principles of a man who had been the living embodiment of that will. Sakura looked at Naruto, her eyes shining with admiration. He wasn't just being loud, he was standing up for what was right. Sasuke looked at Naruto, then at Tazuna. He saw the parallel again. A man trying to restore something precious that had been taken from him. A clan. A home. A future. I'm not running away, Sasuke said, his voice low. Kakashi sighed, a long, weary sound. He looked at his three students, united in their resolve, and then at Tazuna. He was outvoted. All right, he said, a reluctant smile in his eye. It seems the mission continues. Tazuna looked at Naruto, tears welling in his tired eyes. Thank you, kid. Thank you? Naruto just gave him a thumbs up. One ripple, he thought. The ambush was neutralized without panic. The team's resolve is stronger. Now for the tidal wave. The journey continued, but the atmosphere was different. The playful innocence was gone, replaced by a tense vigilance. Kakashi took the lead, his Sharingan active beneath his headband, scanning for threats. He knew the demon brothers were just appetizers. The main course was coming. They arrived at the coast and took a small, fog-shrouded boat across the water towards the Land of Waves. The massive, half-finished bridge loomed out of the mist like the skeleton of a great beast. It's close, Naruto murmured, so quietly only he could hear. His senses were screaming. The air was thick with killing intent, a pressure so immense it felt like the fog itself had weight. As their boat passed under the shadow of the bridge, Kakashi suddenly yelled, "Duck!" They all hit the deck of the boat just as a massive sword, a zanbato so large it looked comical, spun through the air where their heads had been. It slammed into a tree on the shore with a deafening thunk. A figure landed silently on the hilt of the blade, his back to them. He wore the standard mist flak jacket, but no shirt, his torso and arms wrapped in bandages. His face was also half-bandaged, and he wore his mist headband sideways. Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the hidden mist. Well, Zabuza's voice, muffled by his bandages, was deep and menacing. If it isn't Kakashi of the Sharingan, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to hand over the old man. Kakashi stepped forward, slowly lifting his headband to reveal the spinning, three-tomo Sharingan in his left eye. Zabuza Momochi. A-rank rogue ninja from the hidden mist. I should have known Gato would hire the best. Naruto positioned himself and his two teammates in a protective triangle around Tazuna. Stay close, he ordered in a low voice. Don't engage. This is way out of our league. This is a fight between Jonin. We're just on guard duty. This was his new mantra. Keep his team safe. Let the fight play out as it must, but be ready. He knew how this fight went. Kakashi would be trapped in the water prison. Naruto and Sasuke would have to work together to free him. It was a crucial moment for their bond. The battle began. A thick mist rolled in, Zabuza's signature jutsu, blanketing the area and obscuring vision. Kakashi's Sharingan could pierce it, but it was still a major disadvantage. 8 points, Zabuza's disembodied voice echoed from all around them. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. Which will be my lucky target? The sheer killing intent was suffocating. Sakura was trembling, kunai held in a white-knuckled grip. Sasuke was sweating, his eyes darting around, trying to track an enemy he couldn't see. Naruto took a deep breath. Stay calm. Control the fear. He remembered his first time facing this pressure. He had been paralyzed. This time, he was a rock. Don't worry, he said, his voice a steady anchor in the terrifying fog. Kakashi-sensei won't lose. He's the man who's copied over 1,000 jutsu. We just need to trust him and protect our client. His calmness was infectious. Sakura took a shuddering breath, her trembling lessening. Sasuke shot him a quick, appreciative glance. He was still terrified, but Naruto's confidence was a shield. The sounds of battle erupted from the mist, the clang of steel, the sizzle of jutsu. Then, a sudden splash. Water prison jutsu. They saw it through a break in the fog. Kakashi was trapped in a sphere of water, his face contorted as he struggled for air. Zabuza stood beside it, one hand maintaining the prison. Now, Kakashi, I can deal with your little brats at my leisure, Zabuza sneered, a water clone forming beside him. The clone charged towards them, a long sword of water forming in its hand. It's just like the plan from the bell test, Naruto said quickly. A diversion, a trap, and a strike. Except this time, freeing Kakashi is the goal. Sasuke nodded, his mind already working. We have to break his hold on that prison. Exactly, Naruto said. But we can't get close to the real one. So we have to force him to release it. We need a big, flashy attack. Something he can't ignore. He looked at Sasuke. Sasuke, you remember the Ino Shikacho formation code? Sasuke's eyes widened slightly. He remembered. A plan that required perfect timing and trust. The water clone was almost upon them. Sasuke met it head-on, his taijutsu fluid and precise. He was outmatched, but he was holding his own, buying them precious seconds. Sakura, stay with Tazuna. Naruto yelled, then bit his thumb. He slammed his hand on the ground. Summoning jutsu, a huge puff of smoke erupted. But instead of Gamabunta, a small, fist-sized orange toad with a scroll on its back appeared. It was Gamatatsu's younger brother, Geku. Naruto! What's going on? The little toad chirped. No time, Geku! I need you to do something for me. Naruto quickly whispered his plan. The toad nodded and vanished in another puff of smoke. What was that? Sakura asked. The diversion, Naruto replied, pulling out a large Fuma shuriken from his backpack. He looked at Sasuke, who was being pushed back by the clone. Sasuke! Now! Sasuke disengaged from the clone with a powerful kick and flipped backwards, landing beside Naruto. You better know what you're doing, though, Trust me, Naruto said, offering him the massive shuriken. They enacted the plan from the original timeline, but with a crucial difference. It was smoother, more practiced. Naruto transformed into a second Fuma shuriken. Sasuke threw them both, one aimed at the real Zabuza, the other at the water clone. Zabuza sneered, easily catching the shuriken aimed at him. A genin trick. But the second shuriken, the transformed Naruto, curved in the air and flew past the water clone, heading straight for Zabuza from behind. So you can see through my clone, Zabuza mused, unimpressed. He twisted his body, ready to dodge. But just as he moved, a tiny toad, Geku, poofed into existence right in front of his face, sticking its tongue out. Blay! It was the most absurd, most unexpected diversion imaginable. Zabuza, an S-rank killer in the middle of a life-or-death battle, froze for a microsecond, his mind unable to process the sudden appearance of a rude amphibian. That microsecond was all Naruto needed. He dispelled his transformation in midair, a kunai in his hand, and slashed downwards. He wasn't aiming for a vital point. He was aiming for the hand that held the water prison. The kunai sliced deep into Zabuza's wrist. The ninja cried out in pain and surprise, his concentration breaking. The sphere of water collapsed, freeing Kakashi. Brilliant! Kakashi gasped, taking in a huge lungful of air before immediately engaging Zabuza. The battle turned. Zabuza, injured and now facing a free Kakashi with a Sharingan, was on the back foot. They mirrored each other's jutsu, a high-speed ballet of water dragons and giant vortexes. It ended just as it had before, with Kakashi cornering Zabuza, ready to deliver a final blow. And then it happened. Two Saban needles flew out of the mist, embedding themselves in Zabuza's neck. He collapsed, seemingly dead. A new figure appeared on a nearby branch. A slender youth in a mist hunter-name mask, with long dark hair. Haku. Thank you, the masked figure said, his voice soft and feminine. I have been hunting Zabuza for a long time. It was my duty to stop him. He, or she, as his team assumed, flickered down, checked Zabuza's pulse, and confirmed his death. Kakashi, wary but accepting the story, stood down. Naruto watched, his heart aching. He knew the truth. Haku was Zabuza's devoted tool, his surrogate child. This was all a ruse. Zabuza was in a death-like state, not actually dead. The masked ninja picked up Zabuza's body. Now, I must dispose of the body. It contains many village secrets. He vanished in a swirl of mist. The immediate threat was over. Kakashi collapsed from chakra exhaustion, the strain of using the Sharingan for so long finally taking its toll. Sasuke stood over him, trembling. Not from fear, but from adrenaline and frustration. He had been utterly useless against a real threat. He had needed the dobe to come up with a plan to save their sensei. His fists were clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Naruto walked over to him. You did good, Sasuke. I did nothing, Sasuke spat, his voice filled with self-loathing. You saved him. I just stood there. That's not true, Naruto said, his voice firm. I was the strike this time. You were the diversion, holding off that clone. You bought me the time I needed. Without you, the plan would have failed. We saved him. Together. Sasuke looked up at him, his dark eyes searching Naruto's face. He saw no gloating, no hint of I told you so. He only saw sincere, unwavering belief. The poison of his pride was being slowly, steadily neutralized by the antidote of Naruto's unconditional partnership. They carried their sensei to Tazuna's house, where he was put to bed. He warned them that Zabuza was likely still alive and that they had 1 week to prepare before he would be back. That week was a crucible. Kakashi, laid up in bed, taught them the tree-climbing exercise to improve their chakra control. Sakura, thanks to Naruto's earlier advice, mastered it in under an hour, earning a rare nod of praise from Sasuke. Naruto and Sasuke, driven by their new rivalry, one of mutual growth rather than bitter competition, pushed each other relentlessly. They raced to the top of the tallest trees, their competitive fire burning brighter and hotter than ever. But now it was a fire that forged, not consumed. Naruto used this time to seek out his true target. One early morning, he found him in the woods, gathering medicinal herbs. Haku, dressed in a simple pink kimono, his hair tied back. He was no longer wearing his mask. Those herbs are good for muscle tears, but not for nerve damage, Naruto said, walking out from behind a tree. Haku startled, his hand instinctively going to a pouch of samban. His eyes, soft and brown, widened when he saw it was just the blonde kid from the bridge. You're the bridge builder's guard, Haku said, his voice soft. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said, offering a small, friendly smile. He sat down a few feet away, making no threatening moves. You're not from around here, are you? No, Haku said quietly, relaxing slightly. I'm just traveling. It must be lonely, Naruto said, looking out at the morning mist. Traveling all by yourself? Haku was silent for a moment. I am not alone. I have a precious person. Someone I must protect. That is my purpose. Naruto's heart ached. He was talking about Zabuza, having a precious person, someone you'd do anything to protect. That's what makes you strong, isn't it? Naruto mused, as if thinking aloud. But what if protecting them means doing terrible things? Does that still make you strong? Or does it just make you a tool? Haku went rigid. His soft expression hardened, becoming as cold as his hunter-name mask. What do you know of such things? I know what it's like to be seen as a tool, Naruto said, his voice dropping, filled with a genuine sadness. To have a power inside you that other people want to use. To be valued not for who you are, but for what you can do for them. It's a cold existence. He was talking about his Jinchuriki status, but the words resonated perfectly with Haku's own life. Haku stared at him, his defenses momentarily shaken. This boy, he seemed to understand a pain Haku thought was uniquely his. But I decided something, Naruto continued, looking Haku directly in the eyes. I'm not a tool. And I'm not a weapon. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. And my purpose isn't just to protect my precious people, it's to save them. Even if it means saving them from themselves. He stood up. I hope you can save your precious person too, he said gently. Before it's too late. Before they make you do something you can't take back. He walked away, leaving Haku standing alone in the woods, Naruto's words echoing in his mind like a temple bell. He had not used talk no jutsu to defeat him. He had planted a seed of doubt, a question about his own identity, his own purpose. He had offered Haku the one thing Zabuza never could, the idea that he could be more than just a tool. A week later, they stood on the completed section of the bridge, shrouded in a thick, familiar mist. Zabuza had returned, as predicted. And Haku was by his side, this time wearing his mask and a grim resolve. Gato was there too, with a small army of thugs, watching from a safe distance. So, the little brats are here to play ninja again, Zabuza sneered. The battle began. Kakashi engaged Zabuza, a rematch between Jonin. And Haku trapped Sasuke inside his demonic mirroring ice crystals. Naruto arrived just as he had the first time, making a grand entrance. The hero of the story always arrives late. He charged towards the ice mirrors, but this time, he didn't enter recklessly. He stopped just outside. Naruto, don't! It's a trap! Sasuke yelled from within the dome of mirrors. He was already riddled with samban, bleeding from a dozen small wounds. I know, Naruto said, his voice calm. He looked at the mirrors, at the faint reflection of Haku moving between them at impossible speeds. Haku! I know you're in there. Is this what you want? To be Zabuza's weapon until the day you break? I am a tool, Haku's voice replied, echoing from the mirrors. My purpose is to ensure Zabuza's dream is realized. I have no heart but his. No will but his. That's a lie. Naruto yelled back. The person I met in the forest, the one who gently gathered herbs, the one who spoke of a precious person with such love, that person had a heart. Zabuza didn't teach you that kindness. That was you. Inside the mirrors, Haku faltered. His attacks on Sasuke slowed for a fraction of a second. What is your dream, Haku? Naruto pressed, his voice ringing with power. Not Zabuza's dream. Yours. Do you even have one anymore? Or did he take that from you too? Outside the dome, the battle between Kakashi and Zabuza raged. Zabuza was fighting with a ferocity born of desperation, but Kakashi, prepared and not exhausted, was slowly gaining the upper hand. Inside, Sasuke was on his last legs. Haku, his resolve shaken by Naruto's words but still bound by his loyalty, prepared a final, fatal volley of Saban. I cannot fail him, Haku whispered. He shot forward. Sasuke, his body too slow to react, saw the needles coming. He closed his eyes, bracing for the end. But the impact never came. He opened his eyes. Naruto stood in front of him, having entered the dome at the last second, taking the full volley of Saban meant for Sasuke. His body was a pincushion of needles. He looked like a bloody scarecrow. Naruto too? Sasuke choked out, his eyes widening in horror. The world seemed to slow down. He saw his teammate, the loud-mouthed idiot, the rival, the friend, standing before him, having willingly sacrificed himself. It was a mirror. A perfect, horrifying mirror of Itachi standing over his parents. A precious person, falling right before his eyes. Something inside Sasuke snapped. A fiery, searing pain erupted behind his eyes. The world, which had been a blur of ice and speed, sharpened into an impossible, terrifying clarity. He could see Haku, not as a blur, but as a distinct figure moving between the mirrors. He could see the flow of chakra. He could see everything. In his eyes, the single tomo of his Sharingan spun wildly, morphing into two. You! Sasuke growled, a deep, guttural sound of pure rage. How dare you! An aura of cold, dark chakra exploded from him, cracking the ice beneath his feet. He moved, his speed now rivaling Haku's, his movements filled with a lethal grace he didn't possess a moment ago. He was no longer just a genius. He was an Uchiha, awakened. But as he fought, a new presence entered the dome. Sakura had arrived, having left Tazuna in the care of his family. She saw Naruto's limp, senbon-riddled body lying on the ground. A scream of pure anguish tore from her throat. Naruto! She ran to him, her mind blank with terror. She fell to her knees, her hands glowing with green chakra as she desperately, instinctively, tried to heal him, tears streaming down her face. It was clumsy, unfocused, but it was pure medical ninjutsu, born from desperation and a frantic desire to save her friend. The sight of Sakura crying over Naruto's corpse, the raw power flowing from the awakened Sasuke, and Naruto's own words all crashed down on Haku at once. This wasn't what he wanted. He was a tool for Zabuza, but he never wanted to be a monster. Meanwhile, Kakashi had finally trapped Zabuza. His hands flashed through seals, a sound like 1,000 chirping birds filling the air. The Chidori. He charged, lightning crackling in his palm, aimed straight for Zabuza's heart. It's over, Zabuza. At that exact moment, Haku made his choice. He used the last of his chakra to flicker out of the ice dome, appearing directly between Kakashi and Zabuza. Kakashi's eyes widened in horror, but he couldn't stop his momentum. The Chidori plunged through Haku's chest. Haku smiled, a sad, peaceful smile, as his blood spattered onto Zabuza's shocked face. He grabbed Kakashi's arm, his grip surprisingly strong. Zabuza-sama, live. Haku fell, his life extinguishing, and that was when Gato and his army of thugs chose to make their appearance, walking onto the bridge, clapping mockingly. Well, well, demon of the mist, Gato sneered. Looks like you're not so tough after all. And you cost me a fortune, breaking your little pet like that. Since you're injured and useless now, I've decided to amend our contract. We're going to kill you, kill the bridge builder, and take everything. Boys, get them. The thugs laughed, drawing their weapons. Zabuza stood frozen, Haku's blood cooling on his cheek. He looked down at the boy who had been his shadow, his tool, his only family. He saw not a weapon, but a child who had died for him. Naruto's words echoed in his head. I hope you can save your precious person too. Before it's too late. It was too late. Tears streamed down Zabuza's face, mixing with Haku's blood. He let out a roar of pure, animalistic grief and rage. But as he tensed to fight, something happened that no one expected. Naruto sat up. He pulled the saban from his body as if they were splinters. The wounds underneath were already closing, steaming with red chakra. You talk too much, he said, looking at Gato, his voice a low growl. His blue eyes were now slitted and blood-red. The Nine-Tails chakra was leaking out, but this time, it was not a wild, uncontrolled rage. It was a cold, focused fury. He was in control. Zabuza, Naruto said, not looking at him. He was your precious person, wasn't he? Haku fought for you. He died for you. Not for your dream. For you. Are you going to let these scum spit on his sacrifice? Zabuza looked at the blond boy, at the demonic red chakra swirling around him, and saw not a monster, but an echo of Haku's own fierce loyalty. With a final, shattering roar, Zabuza grabbed a kunai from Haku's lifeless hand. He charged into the army of thugs, not as a shinobi, but as a demon avenging his kin. He was a whirlwind of death, cutting down thug after thug, their blades breaking against his heart and will. He sustained dozens of wounds, but he didn't stop until he reached Gato. He plunged the kunai into the fat man's chest, again and again, his rage finally spent. He collapsed beside Gato's corpse, his own life fading fast. The remaining thugs, their leader dead, were terrified. But before they could decide whether to fight or flee, they were met with a terrifying sight. Sasuke, his two-tomo Sharingan blazing. Sakura, standing protectively over Naruto, her hands glowing with fierce green energy. And Naruto, surrounded by 100 shadow clones, all with glowing red eyes. The thugs dropped their weapons and ran for their lives. In the aftermath, as the mist began to clear, Zabuza lay dying. Naruto walked over to him and gently lifted him, carrying him to Haku's side. Kid! Zabuza rasped, his breath shallow. You were right. All he ever wanted was to be by my side. And all I ever did was use him. He knew, Naruto said softly. And he loved you anyway. Snow began to fall, a freak occurrence in the warm weather. It was Haku's final, weeping farewell. Zabuza reached out a trembling hand, caressing Haku's cold cheek. If I could, I would like to go to the same place as you, Haku. His hand fell, and the demon of the hidden mist was still. The ripple had become a wave. Haku had still died, a tragedy Naruto couldn't prevent without revealing his hand completely. But his death was different. It wasn't just a tool breaking, it was a conscious sacrifice, made after being reminded of his own humanity. And Zabuza's death wasn't a footnote, it was a roaring, redemptive blaze of glory. He died protecting the honor of his precious person. Sasuke had awakened his Sharingan, not in a moment of despair and helplessness, but in a surge of righteous fury to protect his teammate. Sakura had unlocked her potential as a medical nin, not in a textbook, but in a desperate, loving attempt to save her friend's life. And Naruto had shown them all a glimpse of the monster inside him, but he had shown them that he was its master, not its slave. Team 7 stood together on the bridge, named the Great Naruto Bridge by a grateful Tazuna. They were no longer just a team, they were a family, forged in the fires of their first true battle, bound by loss, sacrifice, and an unbreakable, hard-won trust. The world was still a dangerous place, but they would face it together, and that single, powerful change had already begun to alter the course of history.